Elias Rook was a blind human living far away from Earth. He worked on the alien world of Velaris Prime, a cold planet where the sky shimmered in shades of violet. He could not see the beauty of it, but he could feel it in the warmth of the light on his skin. Elias was known by everyone in the colony for his calm voice, his quiet smile, and the way he fixed machines with hands that never missed a bolt. Even without eyes, he saw things that others could not. Velaris Prime was ruled by alien nobles who looked down on humans. They believed their silver skin and sharp horns made them superior. Among them was the royal family of Velaris. Powerful and proud, they had 3 daughters. 2 were famous for their grace and beauty, but the third one, Alira, was always hidden behind veils. Her skin bore marks of a failed transformation. Her horns were cracked, and her eyes carried sadness deeper than the sea. She was called the Rejected Sister, a name whispered behind palace walls one morning. Elias was called to the royal palace to repair a broken energy conduit. He arrived guided by a palace guard, his steps sure and confident. The nobles watched him curiously, whispering that a blind human had no place among them. While Elias worked, the king himself walked in, followed by his wife, the queen, and their daughters. When Elias bowed politely, the eldest daughter laughed softly. "He cannot even see us. Why does he bow?" she said, her voice cold as glass. But Alira said nothing. She stood quietly at the back. Unseen and unwanted, Elias, unaware of her gaze, kept working. His fingers danced over wires and circuits, and soon the broken conduit began to hum again. The lights glowed bright and stable. The nobles clapped in mock surprise. The king smirked and said, "You fix machines well, human. But can you fix loneliness too?" Elias tilted his head, confused, before the king's voice turned cruel. "We have a daughter no one wants. Perhaps we should reward you with her hand. What say you, blind man?" The court erupted in laughter. It was a cruel joke meant to humiliate him. Even Alira froze in disbelief. She felt her heart sink as everyone stared at her. Elias stood silent for a moment, his face unreadable. Then he smiled faintly. "If you mean to mock me, your majesty, it is your right," he said gently. "But if you offer a soul to share my silence, I will accept her with honor." The laughter stopped. The king's amusement faded, and for a moment, the room was filled with shocked silence. Alira's breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken kindly about her before. No one had ever called her a soul. Not a curse, not a mistake. The queen looked uneasy, whispering to her husband that it was only meant as a joke. But the king, stubborn and proud, raised his voice and declared, "So be it. The blind human shall marry the rejected sister. Let the stars bear witness," the nobles gasped. And whispers spread like wildfire through the palace halls. That night, Alira sat alone in her room, her trembling hands touching the veil that hid her scars. She wondered why he said yes. Was it pity, foolishness, or bravery? She thought of his calm face, the way he smiled without seeing, and something inside her heart ached strangely. When the queen came to her chamber, she begged Alira to refuse, but Alira whispered, "He didn't laugh at me, mother." "Maybe I want to know why." The wedding was held quietly at the edge of the capital, away from the crowds. The ceremony was short, simple, and cold. The alien priests muttered ancient words, and Elias stood still, holding her hand gently in his. His touch was warm, steady, respectful. After the ceremony, when the crowd left, he turned toward her and said softly, "I cannot see you, Alira, but I can hear that your heart beats fast. Are you afraid of me?" She hesitated. "I am afraid of everyone," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Elias smiled. "Then we have something in common," he said kindly. "I too am afraid of hurting someone I cannot see. His words broke something inside her. Tears filled her eyes. For the first time in her life, someone had spoken to her as an equal, someone who didn't care about her face, only her feelings. As days passed, Alira began to watch him quietly. The blind human who worked all day fixing things, talking softly to machines as if they were alive. He would sit outside at night and listen to the wind, smiling as if the world spoke to him. Sometimes she would join him, silent at first, until one evening he asked, "What color is the sky here?" She looked up and said, "Violet with silver clouds." He nodded slowly. "I thought it sounded like that." Word of their strange marriage spread across Velaris. Many nobles mocked them, saying the human had no pride. Others pitied Alira for being cursed to live with a man who could never see her. But slowly, something began to change. People noticed Alira walking through the markets again. Her head not bowed but raised, she spoke softly to merchants, helped children who dropped their food. The rejected sister began to smile again. Elias's kindness became known through every district. When machines failed, when homes needed light, he fixed them all, never asking for payment, only saying, "If it helps someone, it's enough." The aliens began to respect him, though they didn't admit it aloud. And every night, when Alira sat beside him under the silver sky, she wondered how a blind man could see her more clearly than anyone else ever had. He never looked at her face, but when he spoke her name, she felt seen, truly seen, for the first time. The blind man had accepted what no one else wanted, and in doing so, he had changed something quietly, something deep. The people laughed less when they saw them together, and whispered more softly, because somewhere in their hearts, they felt a strange truth. Perhaps the man with no eyes saw more beauty than all of them combined. Elias and Alira lived far from the capital. In a small outpost built near the violet forests of Velaris Prime, the wind there always carried a soft hum. Like a distant song, it was quiet, peaceful, and lonely, for the world still whispered about them. The blind human and the rejected alien bride. People said their marriage would not last, that he would tire of her silence, or she would leave him in shame, but they were wrong. The first few days were filled with distance. Alira moved carefully around him, afraid to speak, afraid to be seen even by a man who could not see. She hid her face behind her hair, never eating at the same time as him. She thought if he never touched her scars, he would never know how ugly she truly was. But Elias, patient and gentle, never forced her. He went about his work fixing machines, tending to the solar units, repairing damaged drones. Every sound guided him. Every vibration told him what to do. It was like his world was made of sound and touch, not sight. At night, he would sit outside their small home, facing the glowing forest, listening to the wind that moved through the trees. Alira would stand inside the doorway, watching him quietly. One night he said softly, "You don't have to hide from me." "Alira," his tone calm. Without judgment, she froze. "I'm not hiding," she whispered. "Then come sit," he said, patting the spot beside him. She hesitated, but obeyed. Sitting a little distance away, for a long time they said nothing, only listened to the gentle hum of the forest. Finally he asked, "Do you miss the palace?" She shook her head. "No, I was never welcome there," she replied. "Then perhaps we are both exiles," he said with a small smile. "You for being unwanted, and I for being human." Alira looked at him, startled. She had never heard anyone speak about it so simply. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He was just honest. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the silence between them began to change. Elias built small machines in his spare time, tiny glowing birds that sang, wind chimes that changed color with sound. When Alira asked why, he said, "Because I like to make things that give light." she asked, "even though you cannot see them?" He smiled. "I can hear the joy in your voice when you look at them." "That's enough." His words touched something deep inside her heart. One morning, she found him sitting with a small box in his lap. "What are you making now?" she asked softly. "A gift," he said. "For someone who hides from her own reflection," she frowned. "I told you I don't want mirrors," he chuckled. "It's not a mirror." He opened the box. Inside was a small orb, glowing faintly blue. "It changes color when you smile," he said. She blinked. "How would it know?" He replied. "It listens like I do," she laughed. A sound she had not made in years, and the orb glowed bright silver. From that day, the air between them changed. She began to talk more about her childhood, her sisters, the way the palace treated her like a stain. Elias listened to every word, never interrupting, never judging. One night she asked him, "Do you ever wish you could see?" He paused. "Once I did," he said quietly. "But if seeing means judging beauty with eyes instead of heart, I'm glad I can't." Alira felt tears on her cheeks. No one had ever spoken words like that to her before. One evening, a storm came across Velaris Prime. Strong winds hit the outpost. Lights flickered. Power went out. Alira panicked. Afraid of the dark. Afraid of being useless. Elias held her hand gently and said, "Don't worry. I know this darkness. I've lived in it all my life." He guided her by touch, showing her how to find the backup power line, how to feel for the cables. Together they fixed it. When the light returned, she looked at him differently. For the first time, she didn't see a fragile human. She saw strength, calmness, and courage. The days after the storm brought warmth, Alira began joining him in his work, learning how to fix drones, how to connect wires, her hands steady beside his. The people in nearby settlements started visiting them for help. The blind man and his alien wife became quiet legends, fixing broken machines and sometimes broken hearts. When people came to thank them, Elias would always say, "We just like helping things work again." But not everyone approved. Word of their growing bond reached the palace, where the queen began to worry, and the council of nobles grew angry. They said the human was dangerous, that he was influencing the royal bloodline. The eldest sister sneered, "The blind fool and the broken sister? It's embarrassing to our kind." The queen ordered a visit, wanting to see the truth for herself. When Alira heard her mother was coming, she grew nervous. She cleaned their home again and again, though Elias told her it was fine. When the queen arrived with her guards, she expected to see misery. She expected to find her daughter still ashamed. Instead, she found laughter, soft music, and the smell of cooked food. She saw her daughter smiling, not hiding, and the blind human sitting beside her. Listening as she told a story, the queen said, "You seem happy." Alira nodded. "I am," she said simply. Elias stood and bowed politely. "Your Majesty," he said, "I can't see your face, but I can hear your concern. If it helps, know that she is safe here." The queen stared at him silently. She felt a strange pull in her chest, something old, something from the ancient prophecy that once said, "A man without eyes shall open the eyes of the world." That night, as the queen left, she looked back once more, seeing her daughter standing beside the blind human. Their hands touching lightly, she whispered to her guards, "Perhaps the stars have sent him for a reason." But in the palace shadows, not everyone agreed. The council whispered that the human must be watched, that a change was coming, and they would not allow it. And so, while Alira and Elias built light in the quiet corners of their small home, darkness began to move within the palace walls, waiting, watching, and planning what would come next. The Queen of Velaris could not sleep that night after seeing her daughter again. The image of Elira's smile kept returning to her mind. For years she had believed her youngest child would live and die in shadows. Cursed by fate, yet the human this blind man from Earth had done what no royal healer, priest, or scholar could. He had made Elira live again. But while the queen felt a strange hope, the royal council felt only fear in the palace chambers. The high advisor spoke sharply. "Your Majesty, this human is dangerous," he said. "Our people whisper that his presence brings miracles, that he heals hearts. If this continues, your family will lose its divine image." The queen frowned. "He is just a man, kind perhaps, but no threat." But the advisor shook his head. "Kindness is a greater threat than rebellion," he said darkly, "because it makes people think." Meanwhile, in the small outpost far from the palace, life continued in quiet beauty. Elias had begun teaching Elira how to build simple machines. Together they repaired water filters for the village, fixed broken solar lamps, and helped the travelers who came with damaged drones. Every time Elira laughed, the sound filled the air like sunlight. The villagers began to say that the blind man had brought color to the rejected sister's life. One afternoon, a child from the nearby colony came running to them crying. Her small glider was broken. Elias knelt down, listening carefully to the sound of the cracked wings. "Don't worry," he said gently. "We'll fix it." Elira knelt beside him, and within minutes, the small machine began to hum again. Glowing faintly, the girl gasped, "You made it even better." Elias smiled. "Things that are broken don't need to be perfect again. They just need to fly." The girl laughed and hugged him. Her tiny hands around his neck, Elira watched silently, her eyes wet, because in that moment she saw what kind of man he truly was. But rumors travel fast, and soon the stories of the human who fixes the broken spread all the way to the royal city. Some called him a miracle worker. Others whispered he was a manipulator. And the council began to worry that people would start following him. To calm the unrest, the queen decided to visit him again, this time with the high advisor. When they arrived, the small outpost looked alive. Colorful flags fluttered, the air filled with music made by Elias's machines. The queen stepped inside their humble home, her sharp eyes searching every corner. She saw Elira cooking, humming a tune from childhood, and Elias sitting nearby, polishing an old piece of technology. "You seem well, my daughter," the queen said softly. Elira turned and bowed slightly. "I am, mother," she said. Thanks to him. Her gaze went toward Elias, who smiled as he turned toward the voice. "Welcome again, Your Majesty," he said politely. "I wish I could offer more, but we live simply." The high advisor scowled. "Do you think you deserve to speak to royalty, human?" He hissed. Elias tilted his head calmly. "I only speak when spoken to, my lord. Blindness has not taken away my manners." Elira's hand tightened around the edge of the table, afraid the advisor might strike him. But the queen lifted her hand. "Enough," she said. "We are guests here." The queen sat quietly for a while, listening to them talk, watching how Elias could sense Elira's movement, how he turned his face toward her whenever she spoke, as if he truly saw her. The queen finally asked, "Tell me, Elias, how did you come to understand my daughter?" Elias thought for a moment, then said softly, "Because I know what it's like to be unseen." The room fell silent. "When I lost my sight, people stopped looking at me as a person. They only saw blindness," he continued. "Your daughter's pain speaks louder than her voice." And I simply listened. The queen's breath caught, because those words echoed something ancient, something from the prophecy of the seer of stars. A forgotten verse that said, "When light blinds the proud, one without eyes shall guide their hearts." She stared at Elias in shock, but he didn't seem to know what he had just said. He simply smiled and reached for the kettle. offering tea to his guests after they left. The queen's mind was a storm. She returned to the palace and called for the royal archive. She demanded the ancient texts, the prophecy scrolls, and the old seers' records. When the scholars brought them, her heart trembled as she read the lines again. A man with no eyes will awaken the hidden light of Velaris, and through love the lost will rise, the queen whispered. Could it be him? The next day, the council met again, but this time their tone was colder. They claimed the queen had grown weak, that the prophecy was being twisted. The high advisor said, "If this human truly matches the old legend, then he is a danger greater than we can control." They demanded to place spies near his home, to report everything he did. The queen tried to refuse, but the council voted against her soon. Silent watchers began to appear in the forests near the outpost. Observing Elias and Alira from the shadows, Alara felt uneasy, her instincts sharp. She told Elias one night, "They're watching us." "I can feel it," he nodded. "Let them," he said calmly. Light always draws eyes, but in his heart. Even Elias knew that something was coming. One evening, he heard the hum of unfamiliar energy nearby, too mechanical to be the forest. "We're not alone," he said quietly, taking Alira's hand. "Stay close," she whispered. "Are they here to harm us?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but remember, even in darkness, we don't hide." His words gave her courage. High above, in the palace towers, the council's leader watched the reports come in, his silver eyes narrowing. "The prophecy is moving," he said grimly. "And if we do not stop him now, the blind human will make the people see what we never wanted them to." And so, under the violet sky of Velaris, love and danger grew side by side as the prophecy slowly unfolded, and the blind man's quiet kindness began to threaten an empire built on pride. The next morning, the wind carried a strange silence across the violet forest. Even the birds that usually sang above the outpost were gone. Elias felt it before Alira noticed it. The rhythm of the forest had changed. He paused while fixing a drone and said softly, "Something's wrong today." Alira frowned. "It's just quiet," she replied. But her voice trembled slightly. That night, when the two sat outside under the glowing sky, the silence broke. A sudden light flared in the distant ships. Royal patrols, descending through the mist. Alira stood in shock. "It's the Royal Guard," she whispered. "Why are they here?" Elias tilted his head, listening. "Not for peace," he said. Their footsteps sounded angry before they could react. A group of armored aliens surrounded their small home, energy rifles glowing in their hands. The leader, a tall alien with silver skin and cruel eyes, stepped forward. "Elias Rook of Earth," he announced. "You are under arrest for spreading false prophecies and corrupting royal blood." Alira stepped in front of him, her wings trembling. "He's done nothing wrong," she shouted. "He only helps people." The soldiers ignored her. One grabbed her arm roughly. Elias reached out and said firmly, "Let her go." The guard sneered. "Or what, blind man?" He shoved Alira backward, and she fell against the sharp edge of a metal post. Her skin split, and blue light spilled out like liquid fire. Elias dropped to his knees beside her, panic breaking his calm voice. "Alira, stay with me," he said, his trembling hands trying to stop the glowing wound. The soldiers stepped back in shock, whispering. "Her mark is awakening." The commander raised his weapon. "She's dangerous now," he said coldly. "Kill the human. Capture the girl." Alira weakly grabbed Elias's sleeve, her voice shaking. "Don't fight them," she whispered. "Please." But he didn't move away. "Do you know what you're doing?" Elias said quietly, his tone suddenly strong. "You're afraid of something you don't even understand." The commander laughed cruelly. "We understand enough. The prophecy must be stopped. He raised his rifle. But before he could fire, a wave of light erupted from Elira's body, spreading across the ground like a shock wave. The soldiers screamed as the light burned through their armor. Sending them flying, Elias held her tight, the brightness blinding even his darkness. For a moment he could see, not with eyes, but with something deeper. He saw colors made of sound, warmth shaped like emotion. He saw her soul, a brilliant storm of light and pain and love. "Elira," he whispered in awe, "you're beautiful." She looked up weakly. "You can see me?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Not the way others do," he said. "But I see everything that matters." The energy around her grew stronger, swirling into patterns across her skin, glowing symbols of the old prophecy. The ground trembled as if the planet itself was reacting. The few surviving guards fled, shouting that the prophecy had come alive. Elias gently pressed his forehead to hers, whispering, "Breathe, I'm here." Her light dimmed slowly, leaving faint blue trails across the air. When the storm ended, Elira lay weak in his arms, her body covered in faint silver markings that pulsed with life. "It hurts," she whispered. "I know," he said softly. "But pain doesn't always mean you're breaking. Sometimes it means you're becoming." She closed her eyes. Breathing unevenly, by morning, the queen arrived with her personal guard, having heard rumors of an explosion in the forest. When she saw the destroyed clearing and a faint glow around Elira's body, her heart trembled. "The prophecy," she murmured. The high advisor behind her hissed, "Kill the human before it spreads." The queen turned sharply. "No," she shouted. "You will not harm him." She knelt beside Elias. "What happened here?" Elias, exhausted but calm, said, "You sent soldiers to destroy what you feared, and they awakened what was meant to rise." His blind eyes seemed to look straight through her. "Your people called her broken, but she is the light your world forgot." The queen's voice shook. "Do you know what this means?" Elias nodded slowly. "It means the seer of stars was right," the high advisor snarled. "Blasphemy." He drew his weapon, but before he could fire, Elira's markings flared again. A barrier of shimmering light formed around them, throwing him backward. The queen gasped, "Elira, can you hear me?" The young woman opened her eyes weakly, her voice faint but clear. "I can hear everything, Mother. The stars. They're calling." The queen looked at Elias, realizing he had been right all along. Over the next days, word of the event spread across Velaris Prime. The nobles called it chaos. The people called it a miracle. Many traveled to the outpost to see the glowing woman and the blind human who could now see souls. Some wept, saying the world was changing. Others plotted in silence. The queen announced that her daughter was to be protected, but the council secretly began gathering their armies. At night, Elias and Elira sat beneath the glowing sky once more, her head resting against his shoulder. "You saw me," she whispered. "You really saw me," he smiled. "I always did," she laughed softly, her light flickering gently. "What will happen now?" she asked. "They'll come again," he said. "But this time, we won't hide above them." The twin moons of Velaris cast a silver light on the ruined clearing, and far away in the palace, the queen stood at her window, watching the horizon burn with faint blue fire, whispering to herself, "The prophecy has awakened, and my world will never be the same." And deep in the shadows, the high advisor swore revenge. "If the blind man has opened the world's eyes," he hissed, "then I will make them bleed until they close again." As the night fell silent once more, a storm began to rise across Velaris, and destiny moved closer with every heartbeat. The night after the explosion, Velaris Prime was restless. Whispers spread faster than light through every city and settlement. People spoke of the human who could see without eyes, and the alien princess who glowed with the power of the stars. The nobles called it rebellion. The commoners called it hope. For the first time in centuries, the forgotten and the weak dared to look toward the royal skies and dream. In the royal palace, the queen stood at the balcony of her tower, staring at the horizon where a faint silver light still pulsed in the distant forest. Behind her, the High Advisor and his council argued loudly. "He must be destroyed," one said. "The prophecy threatens the throne," another hissed. "He makes the people believe that love can change fate." The queen finally turned, her eyes hard. "Maybe it can," she said coldly. "And maybe that's what our empire needs." The room fell silent. No one dared to argue, but hate had already rooted itself deep in the hearts of some. Far away, in their humble outpost, Elias sat beside Alira as she slept. The blue glow beneath her skin had dimmed. Leaving only soft silver lines across her arms and neck, he brushed her hair gently and whispered, "You gave light to a world that never wanted to see it." When she woke, her eyes looked clearer than ever. "I had a dream," she said softly. "I saw the world without hate, without walls. Just people helping each other." Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's make it real." Soon, visitors began arriving at their door farmers. Workers, even alien soldiers who had once mocked them. They came seeking guidance, asking for healing. And Elias never refused. He taught them simple things: how to fix machines, how to rebuild light panels, how to help instead of fight. Alira stood beside him, her quiet strength inspiring all who came. When they laughed together, it was said that the air shimmered with warmth. But peace never comes without challenge. One morning, the queen herself arrived without guards, dressed plainly, her crown left behind. "I am not your queen today," she told them. "I am only a mother." Alira rushed to embrace her, tears filling her eyes. "I thought you'd never forgive me," the queen whispered. "Forgive you?" Alira said softly, "You gave me life. Elias gave me light." The queen turned to Elias, her voice heavy. "The council plots against you both. They plan to destroy everything here." Elias nodded. "I know," he said calmly. "They fear change." The queen sighed. "I can protect you only for so long, but the people, they listen to you now. They believe you carry truth, if that is what you want. Then speak it." Elias stood, his blind eyes facing the horizon. "I don't want a throne, Your Majesty," he said quietly. "I just want your world to stop judging beauty by shape and strength by power." Alira took his hand and added, "We can't stop them with war, but we can blind them with kindness." The queen smiled faintly. "You sound like the prophecy itself," she said. "Perhaps the seer of stars was never warning us, but preparing us." That night, the royal forces finally came. Hundreds of soldiers surrounding the forest, their ships glowing red against the night. The High Advisor led them, shouting, "By order of the royal council, the heretics shall burn." His voice echoed through the trees. Alira stepped forward, her silver markings glowing again. Elias stood beside her. Calm and steady, he whispered, "Don't fear them. They only see light as danger." The soldiers raised their weapons. But before they could fire, Alira's hands rose slowly. Her light spread across the trees. Not burning but blooming, every leaf began to glow softly. Every root pulsed with color. The soldiers froze, unable to attack as their armor reflected her radiance. "You fear what you don't understand," Alira said, her voice steady. "But I am not your enemy. I am your reflection." The High Advisor screamed, "Lies!" and charged forward, but the ground beneath him split, a pillar of light bursting upward. His weapon shattered, and for the first time, he saw his own reflection in Alira's glow small. Afraid and broken, he fell to his knees shaking. "What are you?" He whispered, Elias stepped forward, his voice calm but powerful. "She is what you buried long ago, your own soul." When the light faded, the soldiers lowered their weapons. Some fell to their knees, others began to cry. The queen's ship descended, and she walked through the fallen soldiers, her eyes full of tears. She reached Elias and Alira and said softly, "It's over. You've done what I could not. You've made them see." In the days that followed, the war ended before it began, the council dissolved, and the queen declared a new age, the age of sight beyond sight. Humans were welcomed into the cities, and the old laws of blood and beauty were rewritten. Elias became known as the listener of light, guiding both races toward unity. Alira, now carrying the title of emissary of stars, traveled the world to heal and teach together. They became symbols of what Velaris could be, proof that love was stronger than fear. Years later, when children asked Elias if he ever wished to see her face, he would smile and say softly, "I already do," every time she laughs. And Alira would laugh, her glow lighting the room. And so, under the twin moons of Velaris Prime, a blind man and a once rejected alien sister changed their world forever, not with war or power, but with love that saw beyond sight. And their story was passed through generations as a whisper of hope, that even in darkness, true vision begins with the heart.